All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? It's a little after 5 and Pacific here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. We know your time is super valuable. I'm Dave Fortson. I'm with the Start Leadership team. Honored to be here. I'm a parent of two now seem to be young women, 13 and 15. So this program and the focus of Start Leadership's work is absolutely applicable to me right now. It's something that we're starting to incorporate into our life, and really excited to see this program get spread out more throughout the country. So I wanted to just start with a little bit of housekeeping, make sure you know where you're at and know what's going to happen today. So again, you're at the Start Leadership, Rekindling Purpose, a path to happiness for your family and you. This is going to go approximately an hour. Both Laurie and Ron from the Start Leadership team will be handling the majority of the sharing today and presentation. We are going to have a question and answer section time more toward the last quarter of the hour. But we encourage you in the meantime to please feel free to go ahead and share any questions that you have in the Q&A setting at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can put questions in there anytime, and if anything's urgent, I'll make sure Ron and Laurie get to it soon. Otherwise, we'll save it for a bit. We'll also be recording this. We're doing that now, and we're going to go ahead and share it out to all of you who've attended and registered, and we encourage you highly to go ahead and share this with your colleagues, family, and friend, anyone who's in the field, if you will, of parenting or influencing young people and their futures. So really excited to get moving here. I wanted to go ahead and start turning this over to Laurie and Ron. Laurie, you want to go ahead and take the reins here and introduce yourself, and Ron, and let's get this going.
I will. Thanks for being here, everyone. We're excited to share this information with you. We're excited to have the Zoom platform now. We're going more places virtually than we were able to go in person. So we're excited to be here. I'm going to start by telling a story about how I came to this work, what my sense of purpose is, and why this work is so important to me. And then I'll let Ron share a little bit about how we became connected and why this work is important to him. But I sat next to a professor from Duke University a few years back on a flight from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. I was going to speak at an ethics conference. And I got excited about the opportunity to find out from him how I might help my son get into a college like Duke. He was 4 at the time. And this was before we had terms like helicopter parenting or micromanaging or pressure to excel. What he told me on this 5-hour flight changed the way I thought about raising kids and about what kids need to succeed and about what our current culture it has done to sort of disrupt the experiences that kids need to be able to succeed and be happy in life. And what he told me was that at Duke, his students, only 10% had what it took to be happy and successful. He said, I know who they are and I know why, and it's not what you think. The conversation for the next 5 hours was exactly what he was seeing, what he thought the contributors were and what these secrets were of the kids who had the ability to fare well. And that's what we're going to be sharing tonight. And I made it my work, finding it to be of great interest to me, raising kids. I have 2 stepdaughters and our son, raising kids and trying to help them connect, have the experiences they needed to have. And we're going to share those with you tonight. That took me to the Haverford School. I started working with schools, administrators, parents at school, in school communities, and parents in the workplace. I'd been doing this strategic planning work in my corporate position. I was a strategist for a Fortune 100 medical device company. And I have an MBA and I understand how organizations work, and I'm talented in, my skill set includes the ability to create conditions where everyone can be, become, and contribute their best. And so this was a natural for me to shift from that to, from a corporate setting to how we could support kids and teachers and parents in doing this work, equipping them with the tools they need. I spent 4 years as a research and policy advisor at Stanford, looking at the high pressure, high stakes culture that kids are growing up in. And we're going to share some of the data that has come out recently about the impact our current culture is having on kids. So we'll talk about that. But in my travels, I had the opportunity to meet Ron at the Haverford School, where we embarked on an 8-year research study to see if these tools would be effective. And so Ron, you can share a little bit about the experience we had.
Sure. Just to introduce myself, I'm Ron Duska, father of 4. I have 3 boys from 24 years old down to the 13-year-old, and then a daughter at 10 years old. And I was a principal for 17 years, my last being at the Haverford School, where I met Laurie, and we worked for 8 years. I was the lower school head there. It was an all-boys school. And we started looking to really dive into the idea of leadership. And that's where I met Laurie, and we met on, I think, Thanksgiving weekend, where we kind of brainstormed an idea and we wanted to jump right into it. So we started it halfway year through and then just continued it. What I found, the impact that it had on our kids, what we found and what we discovered as we did this, we really found the benefits of discovering yourself and having kids find their purpose in real simple ways, and taking that, but more importantly, I think also working with parents and having them learn how to foster what we were able to have the kids discover about themselves and support their kids in keeping that learning going. And we found the benefits of that just tremendous in doing that.
Yeah. And it was a scaffold and building process that went on, that traveled with these kids. They just graduated. This first group of 5th graders, we started in the 5th grade, they've just graduated, and this is their freshman year of college. And they've got a set of tools to help navigate challenges that occur, such as those that have occurred in 2021. But let me share with you what our agenda is. And you know this is why you were here. This is what we said that we'd be talking about. The importance of purpose. What is it and why does it matter? We talk about it a lot, but let's really dig in and define that, because once we define it, we'll have the ability to be intentional about how we move forward with that. And then we're going to talk about the proven strategies and tactics, about how we find our sense of purpose. And then we'll wrap up with a strategic action plan, steps that you can take. We're going to give you some homework. And hopefully you had a chance to download the PDF worksheet that you can take notes as we're going through the session tonight. And then we've got a template on the back for this part 3 strategic action plan. But first, we just want to acknowledge that you and your kids are going through a tremendously challenging time right now, which makes this work, as I mentioned, vital now more than ever. We can't predict the challenges that our kids are going to be facing in their lifetime, and there will be more, no doubt. And so this work, we have this time to do some reflection and some intentional planning about what's most important. And what this work is really about is connecting our kids to a sense of responsibility and resourcefulness in how they navigate, and most importantly, resilience, so that they can, in the face of stress and distress and challenges, they can have the confidence and the grit and the perseverance to see their way through in a healthier way. So we'll talk about the importance of purpose. I spoke a few years ago at a high school in Newport Beach, California, about 100 kids who'd been identified as leadership kids. And we talk a lot about who gets to be a leader and who doesn't get to be a leader. And every time we take a group of kids and identify them as leaders, we're leaving everyone else out. And so we'll talk a little bit later about how we define leadership as being inclusive and self-leadership, that all of our kids are going to become the leaders in their own lives. And so when I work with groups of kids like this, I usually have an icebreaker event the evening before so we can all get to know each other. This school was interested in implementing an intentional leadership development program at their school. And so the kids came into the auditorium, and I told them what we were going to be talking about, and that I wanted to really understand where they were, what was going on in their lives. Is there anything causing them stress? And the whole room tensed up and they got quiet. And there was a minute of uncomfortable silence, and somebody raised their hand and said, I got a C on a test today, and I'm really stressed about that. And then a girl shared that her boyfriend had broken up with her, and she was stressed about that. And everybody was shifting in their seats. They were looking at each other. And what I came to learn was they were wondering if they could tell the truth about the stress that they were under. Were we going to be able to hear what they wanted to say? And after another 30 seconds of silence, a young man stood up, tall and athletic. And I later learned he was the captain of the water polo team, and said, "You want to know what's going on? We can't do this anymore. We can't go on like this." And the whole room collectively held their breath. He went on to describe what a typical day was like for him and how much stress he was under, that he was always disappointing someone. He was disappointing his water polo coach if he was studying. He was disappointing his teachers and his parents if he was at water polo practice. He was staying up till 2 a.m, and he did not understand what the purpose of it was, and no one could tell him. We spent the next 45 minutes. I was at the easel. Kids came up to help write down. It's like the dam burst, and everybody started sharing. And then they started to laugh after we'd been talking for about 30 minutes about what was going on, being real about the experiences that they were having. They started to realize that they weren't alone and that they weren't crazy, that it wasn't just them. And they knew that their parents were coming in to talk to me in the next hour. And I asked if there was anything that they wanted me to share. And they said, yes, all of it. Tell them everything. They have such high expectations of us, and we don't want to disappoint them, but we don't know how to tell them that we can't go on. So I tell you that to tell you that with the research that's come out, about 100% of kids in college are reporting that they are experiencing stress and distress that interferes with their ability to do their work on a weekly basis. So the situation is real. It's challenging now. Parents are feeling, you tell me, we'll talk about this, are feeling an even greater sense of pressure that now this path is not as clear as it was. What are we going to do about a year of lost content? And so it's more important for us to really connect. But let's take a look at how we got here. This anxiousness that we're feeling is based on real life circumstances. There's been a rise in global competition, that we get these messages that success is scarce, only available for a few. In response, we ask our kids to do more, and we offer to help with the best of intentions. And we've got these troubling distractions that our kids are now on Zoom constantly in front of. And all this occurring during events that are outside our control. Right now it's COVID, it could be something else. So with all this extra work, the kids we're seeing a rise in stress, distress, and anxiety. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the National Academy of Sciences, both for the first time, included excessive pressure to excel as a risk factor for adolescent wellness, joining poverty, trauma, and discrimination. And they said it's often but not exclusively occurring in affluent communities. We work with schools, and about half of the schools that we've enrolled in the last year to work on us with this program are schools in communities that are supported through free and reduced lunches. So we know this works across, and we know those students are also feeling pressures, oftentimes different types of pressure, but this pressure to excel is really undermining the health and well-being of adolescents. So you'd think with all this extra work that the kids must be better prepared. And studies have come out, this is from the conference board, are they really ready to work? What they found is that preparedness in school, work, and life is declining. And so stress and distress are rising, preparedness is declining. And now the research, William Damon is a professor of psychology at Stanford, and he has been tracking purpose over the last 30 years students' connection to a sense of purpose. And it is declined precipitously over the last 10 years and is nearing zero now. So we're going in the wrong direction in all of these. This is a cultural phenomenon that we are not at fault, but the good news is that we can take steps to make changes, to shift our focus on what's important for the well-being of our kids. So this paradox then that we're seeing is this push to be all and do all is interfering with kids' ability to be well and do well. And so when we think about what it is we all want for our kids, we all want what's best. Every parent is doing what's best for their kids. And this is the answer that we hear. We want our kids to be happy and healthy. And then, almost as if it goes without saying, we want them to live up to their potential. Of course we do. And if we're being great parents, they will live up to their potential. Figuring out what to do about that is where we can sometimes get in trouble. We live in a Western culture where there's a belief that success leads to happiness. And my time at Stanford, we had students coming in their freshman year. A high percentage of kids in college are on medication for depression when they arrive, and they've been promised that once you get there, you're going to be happy. Be successful in high school with these good grades. Be successful in college with these good grades. Ultimately, you're going to be happy. But they have no sense of connection to themselves or to one another or to the purpose. They've internalized extrinsic motivators, extrinsic metrics of grades and test scores that don't link to who they are and what they care about. And so, we really have to question, does success lead to happiness? When we think about, and this is really important, I encourage you all to think about this seriously, what you believe drives success. Is it good grades and a packed resume and college admissions? Are those the most important predictors? Or is it well-being, a sense of purpose, critical thinking, and grit? Are those the most important predictors? So when we do these events live and I can see you all and hear from you, what parents say is, well, it's B, we know it's B. But then when we really tease this out and we think, that is what we believe? Is that how we behave? What most parents will tell us is they believe B is most important, but they behave as if A is most important. Asking, what did you get on your test today? Have you finished your homework? Hey, I picked up this teddy bear. It's on the Stanford campus today, and I thought you'd want to put it on your bed. The things that we're doing support A. The other common answer that we get, Ron, you've been in many of these meetings with me, the common answer is, well, we want both. We want A and B. That together would be the answer. And so what we talk about here is, there is no research that shows that A will lead to B. We have plenty of research that shows that it does not. I just shared about Stanford, but we have plenty of research that shows that B leads to A. That when we focus on these things, the being well, the self-knowledge, knowing how to navigate, that leads to A. So ask yourself that question and think about your behaviors and how they align. If in fact you believe that B is most important, and be honest with yourself. And depending on the age of your kids, it's also useful to be honest with your kids about this.
A lot of that is are you looking at product or process? And, A being the product that we want them to be able to get these things. And, asking that question of, did you get that A? And not showing them that the whole process to getting that A, if they worked real hard and got the A, great. If they got the A just because it was easy, learning that, okay, that's a little different. So what messages are we sending them? Mm-hmm. And we're going to get into that part as well, why that's important.
So the fact is, and this is the good news, all of the research shows that happiness leads to success. It's just the opposite of what we believe in our Western culture. And so I'm going to turn this over to you, Ron, and let you talk. Yeah. You're an expert on happiness. One
of the great experts on this, his name's Sean Aker. And if you haven't heard him, I encourage you to, he's got great YouTube videos out there. that kind of get the snapshot of it. But he was a Harvard professor, and he started measuring happiness levels. And he started looking at freshmen that were going to Harvard. And if you can imagine, all these freshmen, if they're at the top of their game, they're getting into one of the best schools in the country, in the world. And he was noticing and researching and finding that within 2 weeks, their levels of happiness were nowhere to be found. And his question to himself was, so why would this be going on? These kids are coming from, the best situations, and they're coming here and they're becoming miserable. And his work on research, and he does great suggestions on how do you promote happiness levels. He found that the more that you can improve the happiness levels first, you're going to get this kind of result. So you see the 10% more engaged, 3% more creative, these amazing performance levels that you get as a result of improving your happiness level, and the greater success you'll get from those happiness levels being at an elevated level. And at the core of it, he found there was a real important key to that. It was how each individual was perceiving the world. And if they were doing it in an external way, you're not going to get great results. So a lot of these kids that he was studying, they were relying on external happiness levels. So things like grades, things like that, those performance indicators. His research shows that it's all internal. How you process what's going on is the key to making your happiness levels get to a much higher level. And when you're able to control that and able to manage that and discover what's going to improve your situation, you're able to have much better success in the things that you're performing in. So amazing research, but they all show, and we know it in our hearts, if we're feeling happy, and we're at a real happy level, we're producing much more. I saw it in our kids that we had in our school, and the parents that were with those kids. So you can see that it really lays out. So we designed a program, Laurie and I, that really focused on how do we build that internal process that you can look at and look at the lens that you have and frame it in a way that helps you really become more settled with yourself and create a much happier environment for yourself.
Yeah, and that we saw it year after year, and we saw it with the parents, the peace of mind that they had, and their sense of joy around their kids really engaging for the first time. And so net, this is really good news. So not only does the thing we want most for our kids, happiness, lead to success, we also, 90% of our experience of happiness is something that's under our power to influence. And so here's the case that we're making, that sense of connection to self and really understanding who we are and what we care about and how we can apply that to be meaningful is really our path to happiness. Let's dig in. Go ahead, Ron.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Oh, so I was going to say, let's talk about what do we mean by purpose? We tell our kids to find their purpose, but we've been told to find their purpose. And are you doing work that has meaning and purpose? And I've talked with some millennials about how confusing this has been for them, and how many of them have gotten jobs and after a few months feel like, I'm not making a difference here. I'm going to quit. I don't have a sense of purpose, and not having that. So we've synthesized the research, all of the experts who study purpose, and we've come up with a definition. And I'm going to share this with you. And on your worksheet, there's a space for you to write down your definition of purpose. And if it's useful for you to use our definition to get you started, do that. But capture this in your notes. A motivation to accomplish something that is both meaningful to you and is consequential for the world beyond you. So this has to be something bigger than you. It's also beneficial to have a longer timeline, consequential over time in the world beyond you. And so it's this motivation to accomplish something. And motivation is really the intersection of what you're good at and what you're interested in. If you can find those two things, we see it in our kids. If they're playing soccer and they're good at being a goalie, they've got good reaction time and they're interested in it, they're motivated to play. They want to get out on the field. That feels good. And they're contributing to the team, to the overall team. And so this scaffolds and builds over time and becomes more sophisticated. But I asked you to consider this definition and see if that rings, if that's a conversation you can have with your kids. So if you have kids in the 5th grade and above, they will be engaged in a conversation about this, really understanding what purpose is, and kind of, you throwing up your hand saying, we talk a lot about this, and I know you hear a lot about finding your purpose. And maybe some of your kids have found a sense of purpose. We worked with a young girl who was adamant about going to medical school, and she had conflated pleasing her parents and how excited everyone was when she told them she was going to medical school to what really connected to her. So there's some teasing that has to be done, and there's some exploration that has to be done, and then some discovery, and it's trial and error, and it goes on our whole lives. And let me just say, this is the beginning of a lifelong process. Set of navigational tools you can use. So think about that for purpose. And then think about this for happiness. We're not talking about, I'm happy in the moment I got a new bike or I got an ice cream cone. We're talking about a sustained sense of meaning, joy, and well-being. If you change happiness with well-being, that I sort of know who I am, I've got a sense of hope that things are going to be better, that things are fine, and if they're not fine, they're going to be fine again. That this transcends our current circumstances. So if I get an ice cream cone and I'm happy and my ice cream falls on the ground and I'm not happy, that's not the kind that we're talking about. And I think you know that just from the context of our conversation. So jot that down, have this conversation with your kids, because we throw these, maybe you don't, I do. We use these terms and we don't always articulate what we mean by them. So if we talk about success as being, like Ron mentioned, a process, the accomplishment of something that is meaningful to both you and to the world, that success is, met first with failure and disappointment. And over the years, the kids doing their leadership projects, some of them did not achieve the strategic goal that they set out to achieve, which was frustrating until they realized what they had learned. So that even failure is a contribution to the accomplishment of something that's meaningful to both you and the world. So jot that down on your worksheet, and then have a discussion with that. We also want to talk about, so then what is, looking through this lens, how might we frame the purpose of family and school? And here has been a useful definition for parents, and a useful framing for this is to think about a role with respect to this of providing opportunities and experiences for your kids to connect who they are and what they care about to where and how they can contribute in the world. Ron's got a story that he's going to share about that.
The ducks.
The ducks, the famous ducks at the Haverford School.
So we had, this was our second year that we were doing this leadership program that we were trying to create. And it was the end of the year, and the kids had already gone through the program that we had, and they were 5th grades. We were working with 5th grade students. We had about 60 5th graders working on individual projects, and we had them break into groups where they chose projects they were really interested in. We had done some studies on their wiring and how they worked, and then they wanted to do a purpose project, so they were doing that. So after the project, there was couple of the kids who came up and said, Dr. Duska, we have this duck that laid eggs, and it's just sitting there in the front, and that's the walkway right before the main entranceway. And there used to be a bush there, but they said, what can we do with these ducks? And they were kind of hoping I would, I guess, fix it. And I said, well, what do you guys think we should do? Because I knew they had just done this leadership project. And I said, I want you to think about that and come back with some ideas. And so they decided, okay, we're gonna first protect the ducks. We're gonna build a fence and we're gonna put a nice sign. So that was the beginning of building this fence. They got all their friends. They said, okay, we're gonna build this fence. They built a fence. They put a sign saying, be respectful of the ducks, be quiet, don't scare them. And it was wild because everyone in the community started going to see the ducks, but because they had the sign placed out, they would be real, even the real little kids. We had an infant center, so they were like 2 and 3 years old, who would go by, see the ducks there, the mother duck with the eggs, and they would all follow what these kids built. And the end of this story, it turned out that on Memorial Day weekend, the mother, all the ducks ended up hatching, and we ended up getting a call from some mother who found the duck had gone down into the drain. The police came, they got the ducks out. They continued on across the road to the duck pond, and we were able to confirm we found the duck family over there in the duck pond. But whereas if none of this happened, there was little chance for those ducks to possibly make it. These kids saw a purpose, and with just a little instance, and we ended up getting a letter from the mother, a mother who said she absolutely felt that going through the program gave her son a perspective that helped change and see opportunities to take and dig into projects like this that they could do.
And Ron, and I remember you telling me at the time, and we've talked about that in years, prior to this, you would have said, thanks, boys, I've got it. I'll call maintenance, we'll get it taken care of. But realizing that within every student is a leadership capacity, you shifted in your interaction with them. And you were also struck by the fact that this was not an assignment, that what they had learned in class through their assignments and in advisory, taking the lead in a project and applying their wiring in an area of interest, that they were able to translate that beyond their homework project. And we heard from parents.
They saw the simple steps that would get it done. And that was gratifying. So we as adults were able to say, let's back up and let them take the lead. I think from seeing them do that already. And the other side of it is, them taking the lead because they see the ability in themselves. And that's where we see this small L leadership, where you start with yourself, take the leadership in your life and ways that you can do that, and ways that you can find the natural things that help you get things done, to the big L leadership, where you're taking groups and others around you and leading the way. So, the two big terms that we have.
Yeah. And we think about leadership sort of the way we think about talent. Everybody has some, but by the end of first grade, most kids believe that they're not talented. The few have been chosen. And we've interviewed kids of all ages, and most of them also believe that they're not leaders. They don't have charisma. It's sort of this old definition, and they haven't been treated by the adults in their lives as if they are leaders. And so they have a diminished sense of themselves as leaders. And so this is incredibly empowering work.
And I think it's helping to teach the kids how the different forms of leadership come.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the boy in that year saying, at the beginning of this project, I thought leadership was about making me better. And now I understand that leadership is about making everyone around me better. So we'll make that link to, leadership as this sort of sense of connection to self. This is really what we're talking about. And in these proven strategies and tactics that we have, we're really talking about connecting the kids to who they are, what they care about, where they can make a difference. That's their why. Anytime we can start with why, we have a sense of purpose. And then we've got an additional tool that connects you to how, and we'll share that with you. So we've got CALM, path to engagement. That's a mindfulness practice for families to replicate. Most kids are doing mindfulness in school now. And so we've got a tool that you can use. And we've got the WIN map, path to purpose, and then the START plan, path to leadership. So CALM is helping kids connect to their breath, attend to the present moment, let go of thoughts, and maintain calm. And this results in sort of a less stressful way of being. Until we can take a breath and be present, we can't do any of this other self-assessment work. This is true for us too. And so most of you know the benefits of mindfulness, creating space that's necessary to connect, increasing our ability to focus and pay attention, improve our resiliency towards stress. And it can be a lifelong tool that facilitates our ability to navigate school and life. And then the second tool, and this is really the heart of this work of getting to know, is this WIN map. How am I wired? What am I naturally good at? What are my talents? Interested, what interests that are about what I like and care about. And needs are the opportunities I see in the world, not my needs. Although that comes up and there's a lot of discussion about that, especially with 10 and 11-year-olds, 9, 10, 11-year-olds are very focused on their individual needs. And so there's some great growth that goes on with that. But this is really about figuring out who I am, what I care about, and where I can be of service. And as we mentioned, that's sort of your why. And there's more than one path to purpose, as we all know. We've all had sort of sequential opportunities to develop that. So the importance of purpose, that it provides a compelling connection to something larger than oneself, essential to living a satisfying and meaningful and rewarding life. That's sort of what we've been talking about here. And so that helps kids be more connected, and that connection to self and to others and to the world gives them more resilience. Oh, look at that. And it promotes engagement and lifelong learning. And then the third tool, there are two aspects of this START leadership process. I don't know if you're familiar with design thinking, but we used to think that there were creatives and non-creatives. And then a group out of the design lab at Stanford, I'm familiar with a lot of the work that they do there, they came up with a design thinking process that you can follow steps and come up with creative solutions. And so think of this as the steps that you take in running a project. So you first come up with what your strategic goal for the project is, the tactics you're going to use if you want to. A lot of students discover when they do research that they're not as nice to each other at their school as they would like to be. And so they decide to do inclusion or anti-bullying campaigns, and the tactics to achieve the strategy might be to do a public service announcement. We can think about what this looks like at home. Strategic goal for a project at home might be to help plan a vacation or do research if you're getting something new in the family, or if you're planning an organic garden, that could be a project that your kids could be doing at home. And then what tactics are they going to use to achieve the strategy? And then if they're working on a team, assess who's going to do what. How am I going to bring strengths? Who's going to bring what strengths to the project? Resources required is the R, and then T is what's my timeline to complete it. So if you think back to any project you've done, you follow pretty much those same steps. By giving it a language and a process, it makes it transportable, and it provides a framework that you can build and scaffold on, that they'll be able to articulate that they had a leadership experience, they understand themselves to be leading with a sense of connection to a purpose, and they take that with them as they go through school. So I think that's what I just said, doing well and being well. Okay. So Ron, I think we've shared, I'm going to check the time. It's 6:39. And I'm thinking we might share, as we get to the end, a little bit about the impact that you saw on parents in the community at Haverford. So let me do this last step, and then we'll come back and talk about that. So there's also an organizational planning process. So, this is sort of the organizational behavior side of family that are subject. We're a small community of people with a collective goal of being a family. And so deciding what that strategic vision is and the values and goals that you have for your family is important. And then thinking about what are we going to do to achieve those in our family if we want to be well prepared. How are we going to do that? School, sports, music, volunteer time. What are those tactics? And then really understanding how to assess who we are and then get on track and then stay on track. R is about routines to transfer responsibility for work kids are able to do. And let me just mention, I've done this work in corporate with executive teams to give them a shorthand to use this language. So this not only works at home, it works at school, and it works in the workplace. And then T is the final, training to develop essential skills. And let me just make sure, the assignment that we're going to give you is to develop your family's strategy. And you think of it as your dream for your family. You know, when you envisioned having a family, what did you imagine that would be like? And what did you imagine it would be like over the arc of the 20 or so years that they're at home with you? And then what are the next 20 years going to look like, and the 20 after that? What is this sort of dream you have for your family? And it's a combination. We've got a template. It's on your worksheet on the back page, that if we can identify what we value most, our behaviors, ideas, and beliefs, and we combine those, we connect those to our goals, our desired outcomes for our family, we can come up with a strategic vision for our family. And so I'm going to share a couple of values that come up as the ones that are the sort of the most common that the families that we work with in our family leadership lab workshops come up with. And you can take a look at these and see if any of those are ones that would resonate. And here's what we recommend doing is writing this for yourself, and then sharing this with your spouse, parenting partner, if you have one, and then with your family, and having a family strategic vision, a family strategy that everyone has participated in. And let me just tell you, depending on the age of your kids, and I see that I don't have it on the list, fun is the one that they often insist on. And it's a good reminder to us about living in the present moment.
But even in the younger kids, you'll be amazed how much the way you work as a family, you'll get common goals.
Yeah.
If you have them do it individually, they do, you'll be amazed. It's an amazing exercise to do with your family.
And it doesn't have to be done in a rush, and it doesn't have to be done. You can have a working draft, and it provides a really great central point. It indicates to your kids that you're interested in aligning their dream with your dream to come up with something that you can do together as a family. And then I mentioned these at the top of the hour. Having a sense of responsibility, I know what to do, resilience, I know why I'm the one to do it, so I stick with it even when it's hard, and resourceful, I know how to do it and how to work with others to do it. You can add other goals in here, and then the template that we have starts out with sort of a fill in the blanks to get you started, and then you can modify and adapt this. So an example, in our family, we value perseverance, fun, respect, courage, and kindness. We choose activities that support the 3 R's in order to connect who we are and what we care about to where we can contribute in a meaningful way now and in the future. So that's a way to get started. And this is really about where are we going as a family and why, and then how are we going to get there? This is what we come back to when we're making decisions about what we're going to do in our family. So to recap, we talked about the importance of purpose, what it is, why it matters. We talked about the proven strategies and tactics, how we find it. And can I just mention, we tell kids to find their purpose, and now we can tell them how. And that's with the WIN map. We tell kids to pay attention with mindfulness. Now they can pay attention. And then we want kids to show initiative and to live up to their potential. And with this START plan, we can give them a tool so that they know how. And then this strategic action plan, the steps that you can take to connect to a sense of purpose. And Ron, I think you saw the impact of this work in your parent community, in your teacher community, and in the students themselves.
Yeah, when you look at one of the great tools, and I think you showed it before, the WIN map, and think about that. If you can have everyone discover how they're wired, and there's so many great tools out there that you really get to the heart of where your strengths in life. And then that whole idea of what are you interested in, the WIN map. So wired interest and needs. So what motivates you? And you connect your strengths with your motivations, and then you find a sense of where is there a need in this world? I want to say, sorry. The need is that purpose part. And when you can serve needs with your wiring and interest, and when we teach kids how to do this, and when we even taught parents first. So when we started this program, we found we were so used to teaching just kids. We wanted to try something new. Let's teach parents how to do this. And we could see how they were motivated by just learning that simple little tool of WIN, right? And when you find that sweet spot in the middle of those three elements, you can do marvelous things. And when you have parents and communities using those same points of reference, you start talking about these things in that way. And we were in a high affluent community that were very, highly competitive. And it was amazing to see these parents, many parents who had gone through these workshops, completely turn their perspective around to really focus on a whole new way of helping their kids. And that was so powerful.
Yeah.
And when you have parents and communities working in that way, it really changes the whole dynamic, I think, in so many ways. So that's what we think is so powerful. And when you put these tools in place and you just follow, they're simple, it just helps you get these pathways that make so much more sense to us.
And you have referred to the WIN map as a navigational tool. And I'm gonna, as we wrap up our formal part of the conversation here, I'll share with you our next webinar. It's gonna be about the leadership edge, and it's gonna be working on the WIN map. And so we're hoping you're gonna come and join us for that one as well. And we know a lot of you on the webinar tonight are also educators, and this has worked extremely well, as I mentioned, in classroom settings. You can do it individually, you can do it school-wide, you can do it district-wide.
Yeah, we've had teachers who have used it in their classroom to discover their whole strategic vision for the classrooms. And
it's a higher level classroom management.
Yeah.
It's a higher order of kids participating because they understand the purpose of doing the work. So this is sort of our equation, that when we can connect to this sense of purpose, it fosters a sense of happiness and success, and we're calling that leadership. So the 4-year-old at the beginning of this call had a circuitous path, and I wanted to update you. He's now in his 20s. He's graduated from college. He was captain of his lacrosse team. He had a tremendous experience. He got an offer in tech. We were living in San Francisco, and he was going to return to San Francisco and become marketing in a tech company that is based in San Francisco. And he requested from the company a gap summer so that he could kind of rest and refuel from years of middle school, high school, college, athletics, academics. And he went to work on an organic farm north of San Francisco in an area called Marin County. And he found his sense of purpose, that he had always been connected to nature. He had always cared about the planet and the environment. And he opted instead to go to graduate studies in sustainable agriculture, and is now running his own organic farm and running camps for kids to come and connect to nature, and really connecting them to a sense of stewardship for the planet, and his concern for the well-being of the people on the planet and the planet itself. So that's it. He shares that this work of START has not made him immune to stress or sort of the pressures and anxiety, but that he has a sense of sustained hopefulness and a set of tools that he can navigate his way. He talks about moving from moments of chaos to flow and having this confidence, and that it's the beginning of a lifelong process, and that it has given him this clear sense of purpose, and he's made decisions that are so in line with what he believes in that he's joyful every day about it. So I wanted to close that loop from the 4-year-old to where he is now. There are 3 benefits that come from this work. Kids are going to be more resilient. You're going to have a sense of peace of mind, that you have a master plan, and your family's going to experience more happiness. This is 3 steps to make it happen. Tonight, hopefully, it helped shift even, if a small degree, your mindset about supporting your kids, and then aligning your behaviors behind that to make it happen, and then teaching it, passing it on, modeling, teaching, and reinforcing that with your kids. Okay, and this is the next webinar, February 3rd, again at 5 p.m. West Pacific time. And it's about equipping your kids with the skills they need to succeed and be happy. And that starts with us. So that this is, we went quickly through some high level work, gave you some examples, and hope that you have a sense of what this work is about. We're passionate about this work, and we believe deeply that purpose is the key to happiness and success, and everything we do is in alignment with that work. And it's going to take us all shifting. We can't wait for the world out there to shift. We can't wait for our schools to shift. They're trying, but all of us working together, we can build a culture of everyday leadership, well-being, preparedness in our families and schools and communities for good. And we want to thank you for being here. If you are the kind of person who benefits from more support, we've got books and workbooks to help you through that. I mentioned we do leadership labs with parents and teachers. We've got the Win Map journal that Ron and I put together, and a workbook for students on how they can navigate their journey. And for those of you that are teachers or professionals, we've got a professional set of tools as well. And then we do leadership labs, and we'd love to hear from you either tonight during Q&A, or feel free to email us. We'd love to hear how things are going as you implement these strategies and tactics in your family.
Thank you, Laurie and Ron. Really appreciate it. Really great presentation. We have a few minutes. We had a couple questions come in. I wanted just to flag those, and I think I've answered them for the most part. So one of the questions had to do, and I think I answered it correctly, but just want to confirm. Renee mentioned she was interested in getting a copy of the video to share with her life skills team at the high school that they work at. And I confirmed that would, I think, be possible. And I just wanted to make sure if you had any thoughts on kind of that relationship of Start Leadership to life skills teams and high schools, if you had any comments there.
It's a perfect fit. Counseling, health, life skills, this is a perfect alignment for that. We work with advisors, teachers, coaches, and counselors. And yeah, it would be a perfect fit for that. And Renee, if you want to reach out, we'll schedule a time to talk with you about how you can present this work to your colleagues. I think that would be an ideal use.
Great.
Yeah.
There's another question about trying to how to navigate, if you will, kind of entreeing this whole concept to teenagers in general, and just, is there a way to do it, way not to do it? Just as I think we all have teens, or so those of us who have teens identify with kind of the what's behind that question. Any thoughts there, Laurie or Ron?
Yeah, it's such a great question, because we've all had our kids roll their eyes at us when we come home with this great idea. And so here's what we have found, a tried and true approach, is to do this work yourself. If you get a copy of the book, leave it out on the table, on your bedside table or on the kitchen table, and let your kids know that you're doing this work, that you understand that there's benefit in transferring responsibility. We've had many parents come back and say they apologize to their kids. I think I've been doing your work for you. I've been doing your laundry. I've been doing the dishes. I've been asking you about your homework. But the first step is to do this work yourself, to really make this shift in your mindset, and do that by doing your WIN map. We love the Gallup Strengths Finder tool to figure out your wiring, and then really start talking to yourself about, where have I applied my wiring and interest in an area of need? Being a parent is a great one. You can talk about your WIN map as a parent, and you don't do this in a I know more than you do. You can say, I'm in a discovery process and this is what I've learned. And you talk about it not as if you're trying to force them to do it, but in your enjoyment of this process and how it's connecting you to a sense of purpose. And talking about, if you're doing something that you're wired to do and interested in, but no one will pay you, that's a hobby. And so you can talk about that part of the WIN map as a hobby and how that shows up for you. And if you don't have any, you can talk about how you need to get one. That's another way to get to the sweet spot in the center of your WIN map. Your why is to have a hobby, do some volunteer work, which is you're interested in it, and there's a need for it, but you may not have the skills. You can volunteer at a hospital, but they won't let you operate unless you've been to medical school. So that could be some volunteer work. And then you might talk about how your job isn't in the center of your sweet spot, but you're wired to do it and there's a need for it, and it can fund the other things that bring you joy in your life. So the answer is, do it yourself, do this work yourself, and be committed to shifting, and begin to connect what you see in your kids, their wiring, and what you see their interests are, and start a gradual, just sort of a gradual entree. And then when they see that you've shifted, what we have parents report back to us is that their kids show up at the dinner table because we're going to talk about current events rather than what grades you got, or we're going to talk about what we're going to do next summer, that rather than whether or not you scored a goal at your game today. So that would be a way. And Ron, what are your thoughts on that? You did this with teenagers.
Perfect. Yeah, they remember kids, and I think your recommendation, do it yourself so you can see the value. Kids want to have freedom themselves, so they want to be able to connect to themselves. They want to be able to make decisions, and part of this whole process is learning about yourself. So if it's going to hit their sweet spot, they're going to be all for it. Every kid will.
Yeah.
And so it's learning to be able to do that. It's funny because when we gave our teachers this work initially, and the idea was we're passing this on to the kids, they had to learn how to do that. It's not natural because we tend to want to keep control, but you'll be able to see it with the process. If you follow the path, you'll be able to see where the strengths are and be able to start handing strengths to the kids when they can take them. And that whole idea of finding where they are, they're going to want to know that about themselves. It's amazing talking to kids who are in their 20s sometimes, and you ask them these things and you give them, I've handed off this WIN map as we were trying it out to all sorts of kids of different ages. Everybody learns something about themselves when you go through that process, and that's powerful. And if you take that approach that, hey, I want to give you more freedom, as parents want to be able to transfer responsibility to their kids, this is the way you do that. So that whole idea of, I want to be able to give you freedom to be able to do this, and we're going to take a path to get you there. And I found this great way to do it. So it's powerful. They want to be able to share themselves if you give them space to do that.
Fair enough. Well, thank you to again and everyone who joined us here today. Just a reminder, February 3rd at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard is the Leadership Edge, equipping your kids with the skills they need to succeed and be happy. Please join us then, and we'll go ahead and share this recording with all of you who joined us, and as well as put it on the START website, link out from social media. Please do share this with your networks. Let's spread the word. Let's get these kids organized around purpose and leading the good life that they can. So thanks again, everyone. We will circle back with you soon. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.